Thank you. All right, Kirsten, we'll hand it over to you. I'm going to mute my video and audio so I'm not a distraction. All right.
All right. And thank you, Kim. So like Kim mentioned, a lot of what I am aiming to cover today is just basic information to help you guys as family members support your children and hopefully learn some new skills to implement into your routines. And even some of these things can be helpful for you as well. So I'm hoping that this is comprehensive, but also, pretty straightforward. So obviously we're going to be talking about strategies for school anxiety and school refusal. So let me just click. So first and foremost, I think it's important to understand what anxiety really looks like, what it is. And the simplest way to put it really is anxiety is, like it says, a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. So for example, we might be anxious about an interview or a test that the young people might be taking. It's things that we can't quite predict the outcome of. There's maybe some loose ends or things outside of our control. So we feel this sense of uncertainty and nervousness about it. Anxiety looks different in each person, but common symptoms include things like feeling restless, nervous, or having muscle tension, experiencing things like racing thoughts. So maybe you just can't seem to catch a break. You're constantly thinking about this and that and what if, and I need to remember. All these different things kind of flooding your thoughts quite quickly. And excessive worrying about things, whether they're day-to-day, well within your control, or things that might be a little bit more outside of your control. Anxiety also looks like avoidance of situations that may lead to me feeling this sense of nervousness. So again, the school avoidance is a big thing we see. Avoidance can also look like, okay, I might avoid a crowded store if I don't like being around too many people, or I might avoid driving in a car over the bridge if that makes me nervous. So we're making adjustments to our routine to stay away from the things that make us feel uncomfortable. You might also feel tired or have difficulty sleeping. A lot of this too is related back to this constant feeling of tension or thinking too much, worrying too much. So we're feeling tired, but at the same time might be having a hard time falling asleep because of our anxious thoughts. Physical things like headaches, sweating, stomach aches, and difficulty breathing are common. Might have trouble concentrating on day-to-day tasks, have a hard time getting things done, or just generally feeling overwhelmed and really maybe not knowing where to start or what we can do next. So it's just this very uncomfortable, tense, on edge feeling. And again, it could be something that lasts a few moments or is about a particular situation. It can be something that maybe we feel more often than not. Anxiety is a normal emotion. Everyone feels it at some point in time. There are reasons why we feel anxious that are legitimate, right? We might be nervous about, the outcome of a test result, or, if we're in traffic, it might make us feel anxious because there's a lot going on. It's normal to feel anxious. And I think that's one of the most important things, is that we have to work on normalizing certain emotions because we all feel them. The difference is that sometimes we feel anxiety maybe too much, too intensely, or too often, where then it becomes something that debilitates us and makes it really hard to do our day-to-day routine, right? So more specifically, school anxiety and school avoidance, especially in the time of a lot of virtual learning, has a few, pretty clear indicators, I guess you could call them. Some of them are oversleeping and just, consciously not making it up on time for class, not logging into those classes, maybe logging off of them early, or coming in and out, or skipping an entire day's worth of class, right? It can also look like those students who maybe don't use their camera or their microphone. So maybe they've blocked their screen, they've muted their microphone, they're not actively engaging in class. Maybe the young people are not completing homework assignments. They're falling behind. They have a lot of things overdue. Right? You might notice some changes in mood or behavior at home. So maybe they're not really willing to talk to you about school, or they're not doing their homework like they usually do. Maybe you notice that they're sleeping more or eating differently, or they're just not quite their usual self. Maybe they're more quiet or isolating. So any kind of change in what you're used to can be a clue. Another thing that I think is important to point out is if the young people are not communicating with their guidance counselor or the staff support at school, those individuals that are there to help the children succeed. If they're not communicating with them or skipping out on meetings with them, that's a good indication that they're trying to avoid feeling uncomfortable or having a conversation about what's going on at school. If there's individuals doing in-person learning, some of these still apply, right? Like oversleeping, skipping class, not doing homework assignments. It can also be those individuals that maybe say that they feel sick or they take too many sick days. Maybe it's kids that sleep in class or they're just not as engaged as they used to. It might be those kids that miss the bus or, put up a fight in the morning and don't want to go to school. So some of these can be similar across both in-person and virtual learning. But I think especially as Kim mentioned, being on screen for such a significant part of the day is tiring. So we're seeing a lot of school avoidance and anxiety when it comes to virtual learning. So some reasons why a child might be anxious about or avoidant of school, there's a few. Especially in young children, it might be related to separation anxiety, especially if they've been home with you for quite some time with all of the quarantine and restrictions that we've had put in place. So they might feel uncomfortable about actually going to school or spending time away from the family unit. Maybe they're feeling stress related to the expectations of their education or the pressures that they're putting on themselves or pressures that they feel are being put on them by school staff or family. Maybe they have a lot of things due or a lot of challenging assignments and they're not quite sure how to go about doing them, so they feel anxious about that. Peer challenges or bullying is very common. So maybe they are being bullied, maybe they are having difficulty making friends, or maybe they felt embarrassed in a situation with some peers. And so it's hard for them to want to go back into that kind of situation. There might be some difficulties in learning, whether it's known and diagnosed or not. Things like dyslexia or ADHD or issues with reading comprehension can make it really hard for a kid to want to sit in class when they feel like it's just not coming to them as naturally as maybe they think it should, especially if they don't really know what's going on or why they're having such a hard time. The next one is mental health concerns. So as Kim alluded to too, there's a lot of different mental health needs that our young people have, especially in a time, again, of COVID and all of the different changes they've had to experience. Things like depression, anxiety, of course. Some of the other things we see are just difficulty even like talking about how they feel. Maybe they're feeling, maybe they're confused about what's going on with them. They're not quite sure why they're thinking and feeling what they're thinking and feeling. And so it can make it all the more challenging to go into a setting where you feel like you have to meet all of these needs and expectations when you're not feeling your best. One more reason is maybe stress in the home environment. So kids are very observant of what's going on at home. If there's, fights within the family or stress related to the work that, parents have to do from home, Maybe there's, a move that's happening or people in the home that are changing. Maybe we have a sibling leave for college or grandparents move in. Any kind of disruption or conflict in the home can really impact a kid's desire to go to school. Maybe they feel uncertain of, if they leave the house, then what might happen. So now we get to some of the solutions, some of the strategies that we can use. And again, a lot of these strategies, there is a lot that I have listed, but many of them work best when implemented consistently. So there are certain coping skills or strategies that we can use in the particular minutes and moments where we're feeling anxious or when our anxiety is really high. But there are other things that we can implement into our routines, both as the person may be experiencing anxiety and the family supporting them, to try to make the anxiety less intense day to day. So some of these may seem pretty straightforward, but they're meaningful and impactful, so I add them anyway. But first and foremost, communicating with your child and listening to their needs. So even if you may not understand some of what they feel they need or why they're feeling what they're feeling, just giving them the space to talk and listening to them without trying to solve the problem or deal with it and get rid of it and brush it under the rug. Sometimes just listening to them makes a huge difference. And being curious, asking them questions. Tell me more about why you feel that way. Paying attention to what they say and their emotional experience, which goes to here, validating them, right? So saying things as, as simple as, that must have been really scary. Or, wow, you were so brave for dealing with that or going through with it. And recognizing those accomplishments too. I noticed that you went to all your classes today. That's great. Or I saw that you finished your math assignment. Awesome. Even if they're small things that realistically they should, quote unquote, be doing anyway, pointing out the things that they're doing well helps encourage them to do more. And practicing those positive affirmations. So especially for a kid who might be struggling with their self-esteem or peer relationships, and they're really not feeling too good about themselves, practicing just simple, I am brave, I am smart, I am capable. Having them kind of remind themselves of their strengths and modeling that with them can help them feel more confident, more comfortable. Spending quality time doing non-related school activity together. So I know we've spent a lot of quality time together in the past year, but it's all the more important when we are attentive to each other. We put the phones down, the other screens down, and we do something just for fun. Maybe we go for a walk, go get ice cream now that the weather is nice. Something that shows the child, that we can have fun times too, and it's not always just work. A couple other things. Assisting your kids in identifying and using coping skills. So reminding them of different things that can be helpful. When someone's in an anxious moment, right, it's hard for them to remember the things that they know might be helpful. Some of the things that we've noticed with online learning, especially some coping skills. So if your child is very self-conscious or doesn't like to be on screen, sometimes we encourage them to use a little Post-it note and put it over their box in the Zoom classroom. So then they're not distracted by themselves, the duration of the class. Using things like a fidget spinner or a fidget toy. You can find them on Amazon. Something they can click or spin or squish helps them stay grounded in these present moments and helps them stay engaged, right? They're not going to walk away or fall asleep. They're going to be doing something to try to help them stay engaged. Big thing too, if you have pets at home, sometimes just having the pet on your lap while you're doing class can be really comforting. Animals are a very soothing companion. Um, so trying to find what works for your child and then reminding them of those things if they start to feel uneasy. This next one I think is especially important as we've all been experiencing a lot of stress, especially in this past year, right? And it's modeling healthy ways to manage stress. So if we want our children to use healthy coping skills and have healthy routine, we have to show them that ourselves by eating at a reasonable hour and a decent meal, sleeping at a reasonable hour, maybe exercising and going for a walk after dinner, turning off the work email if we can, right? Showing your child how to have that balance between school and home. Kind of like I mentioned before, in noticing changes in behavior and mood, just keeping a watchful eye. If you're noticing that there are things different in the way your child is eating or sleeping, talking or not talking, just kind of making a mental note. And again, going back to that, asking questions about it. I noticed that you didn't really eat a lot of dinner. Is everything okay? And a big one is practicing sleep hygiene. So, what that essentially means is having a good bedtime routine. Whether it's, eating dinner, taking a shower, turning off your cell phone, having the kids read a book, having some wind down time at the end of the day where they can come down from maybe a really busy day at school and do something that's going to put their mind and their body at ease so they can get a restful night's sleep. I got a couple more. So some other ones are utilizing those school supports. So like Katie and her colleagues, right? Utilizing them and the resources that the school has available, whether that's having a meeting with teachers or, creating an IEP or a 504 plan, trying to figure out if accommodations are appropriate, how can we get them in place to help my child succeed? With that comes communicating with teachers and letting them know that your child's having a hard time or being curious about what they've fallen behind on and what you can do to help them catch up. Encouraging your child to talk to their teachers too, as scary as that might be, they're there for help. And making that feel okay. Normalizing that, like, hey, everybody needs help. It's okay if you're confused in class. Ask your teacher. This next one I think is really important and sometimes easier said than done. But if it's possible to create a space within the home that's designated for school and for learning, especially if kids are so used to going to school and having their desk and their cubby and their locker and all of those things, creating something similar at home where they can really focus and tune in to what they need to do for school and not be distracted by everything going on in the kitchen or the TV on in the next room. So whether it's a desk in a spare space or a corner of their bedroom, something where they can really attend to school. Giving them breaks when possible. So like we talked about, being on screen for so long is really tiresome. And giving the kids breaks to stretch their legs and walk around and maybe socialize with the other people at home, because they get a lot of socialization at school when they're in person. So if you can create some of that at home, it's helpful. The next one is setting small and achievable goals. So, for example, a child might have 15 assignments due in science class, right? It's not reasonable to assume that all 15 assignments are going to get done in the next 4 days, right? That's overwhelming. That's stressful. That's setting me up for, more stress and more avoidance. But setting a goal of, let's work on one assignment together tonight. Let's try to get 4 assignments done by the weekend. looking at what you have ahead of you and trying to make a reasonable goal that is attainable. If a child feels like they can reach a goal, they're more motivated, they're more willing to keep pushing forward. If they feel like they're doomed to fail because there's no way this is going to get done, it's only going to make the problem worse. You know, we hear from kids sometimes, well, I already have 20 assignments overdue, so why would I bother trying to do this one? I'm already going to fail. But showing them that it's still worth making an effort, it's still doable, they're still capable. The next one of creating healthy habits really goes in line with creating stability in the home too, because routine is a healthy habit in a way. So we want to make sure, that we're going to sleep at a reasonable hour, that we're, keeping up with laundry, as silly as that might sound, that the chores are always pretty predictable if there are any at home, and the responsibilities that each person has are routine. If a kid is done with school, maybe it's within their habit to then go take a walk or go sit outside for a little while and then come in and eat dinner and then take a shower and go to bed, right? Having that predictability and that stability is really important. There's a lot of instability in the world, and adults don't do well with a lot of that. Children certainly don't. They need predictable, stable routine. Creating clear expectations or house rules and consequences for breaking them. Again, like consistency and routine. So if every day, your chore is to take out the trash and one day you don't, well, what's going to happen then? What is the consequence to that behavior? Okay. Might not be a big deal once, but maybe if you forget a few times, then you don't get video game privileges. I mean, that's the big one, right? So having clear expectations of what everybody in the house is meant to do to help it function consistently, and then the consequences of what happens if we don't do those things, because that's how we learn, right? Through rewards and consequences. This next one, considering maybe an intervention with someone like a therapist. Much like Kim mentioned with us at High Focus, there are lots of community supports available to children and families. And the whole thing that I want to impress upon you guys is that this is a team effort, and it's a lot for parents to do on their own, especially in a time where we're trying to do so much and balancing so many different plates. So having a little extra support from, a third person that your child can talk to and get support from and ideas for coping skills from, it's all the help, right? And again, I'm going to hammer this point home a bunch, being consistent. So if we're starting to make some changes in the home, making sure that we're doing them every day. That's how we build healthy habits, by doing them every day for a period of time and making that expectation clear. Right? Okay, we're going to have no cell phones at dinner, and that's something we're going to do every single day. Okay. Now, some more specific strategies, and again, a lot of these may sound similar, or you can kind of pick a few from here, pick a few from there, but these are helpful for those kids who might be more oppositional or like outwardly argumentative about school. First one is setting clear expectations. If you have a young person that likes to argue, they will try to poke holes in your argument. So you want to be as clear as possible with what your expectations are, the rewards they can earn, the privileges that they might be working towards, right? And the consequences of not meeting those expectations. Clear and straightforward works best, because that way it leaves very little room for arguments. Sometimes we encourage families to create like a family contract, that it's all written down, we all review it together, we all sign it, so we all know what we're getting into and who's responsible for what. Again, routine, routine, routine works really well for those kids who are going to be argumentative, because if they see that one day you're more lenient about something and the next day you're not, but the third day you might be again, they're going to call out that inconsistency and they're going to make it really hard for you. So having that routine is always helpful. I like this next one of giving transitional warnings, because it helps the young people self-monitor, right? So they can regulate themselves, and that's an important skill for them to learn. So for an example, right? In 10 minutes, I will need you to start working on some of your homework. So it's giving them essentially a heads up. You know, I know you're really busy right now playing video games or talking with your friend on the phone, but can you come help me do dishes in 15 minutes? Right? Giving them that heads up so that you're not springing something on them last minute and they feel blindsided and they feel emotional about it helps them understand, okay, let me try to wind myself down. Let me pay attention to, you know, that transition that has to happen. The next one is using I statements. We talk about assertive communication often when talking about improvements that could be made at home. It sounds pretty straightforward, right? I statements, but they're very powerful because it takes a lot of the blame away and helps us speak more clearly about how we're feeling and thinking. So I know you are enjoying your video games, but I want you to be able to get some rest tomorrow. I know you're worried about your math test, but I want to help you study. Sounds different. It helps them buy into what you're asking because they know that you're there with them. Again, those positive affirmations, right? I know you can do this. You're capable, you're brave, those kinds of things. Just reiterating the positive, strength-based comments, right? Instead of these weaknesses, because with anxiety, a lot of time we feel inadequate or like we're not as good as we should be. And flipping that on its head with these positive affirmations is really powerful. Along the lines with some of these other communication skills, telling the child what to do, not what not to do, right? So come and sit and have dinner, right? Come read a book with me. Let's go take a walk. Instead of stop doing that, do this. Kids are very sensitive, and when the first things they hear are critical or negative, they shut off they shut off listening. Okay? But if you say, listen, let's go for a walk, they're more open to it. A big one for especially the argumentative kids is picking your battles. So yeah, it might bother you that they left their socks on the bedroom floor, right? Because it would drive me nuts too, I get it. But is it really worth arguing for 15 minutes? Is that time well spent? Right? Can we maybe talk about it at a different time? Maybe if we're having dinner and we're talking about house chores. You know, picking the right time to have the conversation is a crucial thing. Giving it the time that it needs to be talked about the right way, not in a rushed way. This next one is giving choices when possible. So I like to just use the example because I think it says it pretty clearly, right? Would you rather work on your math assignment right now or help me with dishes? It gives them two options, neither of which they're probably too thrilled about, right? But it eliminates this option for them to just do nothing. It says, okay, if you don't want to do math, come help me do dishes. If you don't want to do dishes, I'm going to need you to work on your math. And it gives them a sense of ownership and autonomy when they can make the choice. It's not somebody telling them what to do all the time. Following through and not giving empty promises. So let's say You have a conversation with your child on a Monday and you say, if you go to school every day this week, we'll go to the mall on Saturday and you can pick out something that you want to wear, like a pair of shoes or something, right? If you go to school every day this week, we're going to go to the mall Saturday and get you a new pair of sneakers. If they've gone to school every day that week, you got to follow through with your end of the bargain, because otherwise they're going to feel like it's not meaningful. That promise was not worth working for. And it doesn't always have to be monetary things or gift things. It's okay if you help your sister, or if you do your science project before the end of the weekend, you can pick the movie on movie night Sunday. Or we can go to your favorite restaurant for dinner, or you can pick what we have for dinner on Saturday if you finish all your homework on time. But making sure that if they do what we're asking, we do what we say. And avoiding long lectures or arguments, right? We try to be clear, assertive with these I statements, and direct. Kids tune us off, and I say us because as clinicians too, it happens. They tune us off if they feel like we're just lecturing and picking at every little thing they're doing wrong, because it's hurtful to hear that. And we don't want to be present for those kinds of conversations. So we check out. So the benefit of using assertive statements and being really clear with your expectations is it leaves very little room for these kinds of lectures and arguments and back and forth where we're just losing sight of what's important and we're just fighting. For the younger ones, again, routine, really, really important. Teaching young kids that having these different and difficult emotions are okay, that everybody feels scared sometimes. Everybody feels sad sometimes. Normalizing all of the different things that might be going on for them helps them realize that it's okay to express, it's okay to ask about, it's okay to share, so they don't bury it down deep. Using positive encouragement and getting them excited for the day, pumping them up for school, like, wow, this is going to be so great. I hope, tell me what you're going to do in class, or what do you think is going to happen today? Like trying to get them excited and looking forward to school, giving them those little pep talks in the morning. Okay. Again, validating that they might be scared, especially if they're going back to school in person. It might be really scary after not doing that for so long. Listening to them and supporting them through those fears and saying, you're right, it is scary, but we can do it together. Trying things like gradual exposure. So getting them used to or comfortable with school-related things gradually, right? So, if they're going to school in person, maybe we sit in the parking lot and we walk around school for a little bit. Maybe we go inside and walk down the halls. Maybe we find their classroom. Doing things little by little to get them comfortable and used to the idea of school helps it not feel so overwhelming and scary than, doing it all at one time. Teaching them and practicing those coping skills, like those fidget spinners and squishy things, but also deep breathing is really impactful for little kids. I saw a video recently of a little boy, I think he was 6, teaching his 4-year-old brother how to deep breathe so his little brother would calm down. And he had his hand on his little brother's shoulder and was showing him, look, deep breathe, breathe deep. It's a powerful thing. And if we can teach kids to do it when they're very young, it becomes very natural for them. And they do it without even really paying too much attention to it. And this next one of having them make a list of things that went right today, or 3 good things, we call it, right? putting them down on a piece of paper or, on a list on the fridge, having them remember what was fun or enjoyable or, exciting about the day helps them want to do it again the next day. A lot of times we tend to focus on the stuff that went wrong and what was bad about the day. But if we can teach them to look on the positive end, it actually helps them do it more naturally. Again, building a healthy routine. Okay. So for parents, please do not forget that this year has been extremely challenging for everyone, including you guys, and all the different changes we've had to make between how we work, how we do home, how we go to school, and trying to balance all the different plates of everyone in the home, right? It can feel overwhelming and it can burn us out very quickly. It's very hard to be attentive to all of these things at 100% all the time. So we all need help navigating these things. These challenges that we've had to face because of COVID and all of those stressors, we need help dealing with them. It's not anything any of us have been through before. No one person can handle this all by themselves. So it is okay to ask for help, especially from the school staff. That's what they are here to do, is help you and your family through all of these transitions that are happening within the school year, right? And parents, you need to take care of yourselves too. So much like we spoke about creating healthy habits for your kids, we have to do those healthy habits ourselves. Getting sleep, eating, taking a break from our screens, right? Doing the things that make us feel at ease, whether it's, reading or going for a walk or calling a friend. We have to take care of ourselves, and so do you guys as parents. So there are lots of resources and mental health care available in your community. High Focus is one of many, many, many in New Jersey. It is a beautiful thing how many resources are available. If you're curious about them, you can always talk to your school support staff too. Modeling the positive behaviors that we want to show our children, right? So talking about how we feel. Maybe we're feeling stressed out or anxious and saying, what, today I felt really worried. Or today I felt excited. Right? Or telling them, today I felt really tired. It was a long day and I'm really tired. Normalizing those kinds of expressions helps them do it too. They see, oh, hey, mom was talking about how they were feeling anxious today. I felt that way too. It helps them feel understood and supported. And that way we know more. When the young people talk, we learn more about how to help them. And this last piece is not being afraid to ask questions. Mental health is complicated. It is a lot of gray, and it is a lot of things that are hard to understand if we're just figuring it out or just realizing that it needs our attention. Mental health and behavior challenges in kids, it differs from age to age, and things that you might think you have a grasp on might change when they, go back to school in person or go to a different grade. So it's okay to ask questions and be curious about what we can do to help understand and support these kids. That's the job of parents at home. That's the job of the school support at school, the job of the mental health care providers in your community. In the community, it's important to remember that everyone is working together as a team to help these kids succeed, and your families too. So I know I went through a lot of information. I'm hoping it was fairly straightforward, but I welcome any questions that you guys might have. So if anybody does, I think, Katie, you're going to help me out with that, I hope.
Yes, thank you so much, Kirsten.
Sure.
Extremely helpful. So at this time, we welcome any questions. And if you want to ask a question, we just ask that you click the raise your hand button on the bottom of your screen, and then we'll unmute your mic, and then you can share your video. So if anyone has any questions, please just use that button at this time. Okay, I don't see any questions, but I just want to remind everyone who attended this evening, if questions come up later on, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself. Again, for those of you who joined a little later, I'm the student assistance counselor and social worker at the middle school and intermediate school in Fort Lee. And you can also reach out to your child's guidance counselors as well. Another thing I just want to remind everyone is that all the guidance counselors have Google Classrooms. In their Google Classrooms, you can find an array of different resources. And if you're not sure what your child's guidance counselor's Google Classroom code is, you can check the district counseling newsletter, which we sent out via School Messenger a month or so ago. Or again, if you want to just send me an email asking me, I can provide it to you. My email's on that flyer, so please don't hesitate to reach out. Even if it's just looking for referrals or really just anything at all. I'm here for any questions and to support everyone. So I appreciate you guys joining us today. Kirsten and Kim, is there anything else you guys wanted to add to share with everyone?
I just appreciate everybody coming and being attentive to this. I hope it was helpful.
Same. I appreciate everyone joining.
Thank you. And just a reminder also, Kim put her information in the chat. So if anyone is interested in speaking with her further about some of the services that are offered at High Focus, you can reach out to her. If you happen to lose that number, again, feel free to contact me. But I appreciate everyone taking the time to join us this evening, and I hope this was helpful. You're all good to go. Thank you.
Guys.
Thanks, Katie. Bye, guys.